Yo, what's going on, guys? We are back with another OWL video. This time going to be recapping week number 13. So, 13 weeks now in the books, and we've had some pretty interesting shakeouts the last couple of weeks. I think that one of the biggest things is a pretty clear-cut top four. You know, if we look at the standings, you got Philly, you got Shanghai, New York, and San Francisco, who've all been pretty dominant. San Francisco, a little bit of a slow start, but they've been looking a lot more like themselves the last couple of weeks, been getting some big victories. New York, they're 8-2. The only two teams they've lost to are Shanghai and Philly, the top two teams. You know, obviously Philly sitting at 10-1, Shanghai sitting at 9-1. They are your best teams in the league. For me personally, I rank them as Shanghai 1, Philly 2, San Francisco 3, and New York 4. That's just me personally. But then, obviously, after that, we have a pretty significant drop-off. We have London Spitfire, who have not played in about 9 or 10 weeks. They are back in action this week, so we can look forward to seeing that. But I think it's pretty... I think 99.9% of people are going to tell you London's not the 5th best team in the league. They just have 2 losses and 3 wins, and they played some pretty weak competition. So after that pretty clear-cut top 4, it's kind of a, oh man, Vancouver, the rumor is that they've let their entire team go, and that they signed a, not Second Wind, but they signed an NA Contenders team, the entire team, to fill in. So Vancouver is going to be just absolutely plummeting down the power rankings. We thought that Seoul Dynasty was going to be super good. They got off to a 3-0 start. Some people are calling them the best team in the league. They've lost 3 matches in a row, 3-0 every time since then. So, Gladiators, they've been up and down, 4-3. Could they get up to that top tier? Yes. Are they in it now? I would say no. Florida's looked much improved, sitting at 5-4, but they just crushed Boston 2 weeks in a row. Not the biggest challenge. Atlanta, yes, most of their losses are to Philly, but still they're 4-4. And they're coming off a pretty rough loss the previous week. Dallas is looking much improved, but again, they've won a couple matches in a row against not that great of competition. Paris is exactly 500 on the season. You got Hangzhou and Guangzhou. So this mid-tier is absolutely stacked. Like I said before, I would put every single team in the mid-tier, like 1 through 4, absolute top tier. 19 and 20, Justice and Uprising, bottom tier. Actually, okay, I'll give Washington a little bit of credit. They're bottom tier. Boston is tier 3 tier. They're like I'm talking about tier 3 Overwatch, like worse than contenders teams. They're all the way down there. Then Washington is lowest tier. That's not, under the basement. And then I would put Chengdu, even though they're only 3-8. Houston's got 8 losses as well, but I would put them all in the mid tier, 18 through 5. Is there a hierarchy within that tier? Absolutely. But are all of these teams decently close in terms of record and just performance and consistency? They sure are. So it's going to be a fascinating next couple of weeks, especially since like I said, we got Vancouver back in action. We're gonna see what happens with them. You got London back in action, so we're gonna find out a lot about the mid tier and who starts to kind of pull away, who starts getting to those automatic spots. Because remember, the 5 and 6 spots you're in, you are automatically into the playoffs. So, and then 7 through 12, of course, you get to the play-ins. So, yeah, that was one of the big takeaways for me after this week. Wow, the top 4 have really kind of distanced themselves from everyone else. And then there's a lot of teams in there. So, biggest losers for this week, obviously we got to talk about Seoul. 0-6, losing to Hangzhou and Guangzhou. That is brutal. So what's wrong with them? Are they just washed? What's going on? So, the main thing with Seoul, for me, it's a calling thing. I think that they're still not super comfortable with each other. I didn't think Prophet looked especially good on Echo, which was surprising. I thought that he would be extremely good on it. But they just seem like a team that's a little bit unsure of themselves. When they were able to play a bunch of the Mei, with some of the Reaper, they just kind of rolled everybody. They slowly and methodically rolled through teams, and they swept. They were 9-0-1 in their first 3 matches. They only tied 1 against Glads. But ever since they've had to adapt to the quicker divey comps, it's been really, really brutal. Which is weird because, Prophet and Gesture are the dive combo. They were the best at it, with the Winston paired with mostly the Tracer, sometimes, a little bit of Genji, things like that. But it just has not panned out for them. This is still a newer team. Half of the team is new and hadn't played with each other yet. But there's some just baffling stuff going on with them. Support's just going down so early. I don't think Toby and Bedoshin have really come up with any kind of synergy yet. And yeah, I just feel like there isn't a dominant, confident shot caller right now in this team, and it's hurting them. One of the things with London was, when they would get into a little bit of a rut, they didn't have like a player / coach that could really just get the best out of people again. Get people to bounce back. Get people to get out of their shells and start calling and start being assertive. Because in the Overwatch League, when you're not being assertive and you're not being aggressive, you're just not going to do well. It's not a thing to play super passively and win. People said that Excelsior had a very passive style in previous seasons. That's partially true, but they played passively to a point, and they had a plan. So then when they would get to a certain point, it would be time for them to play aggressively, when they could punish, and then they would play aggressively, if that makes sense. Teams like Vancouver, teams like San Francisco were more aggressive at all times, keeping you just on your heels, not letting you coalesce as a team, not letting you build up ultimates, getting fights that they want. So there's multiple types of aggression, but you need a level of aggression and confidence, and I don't see that in Seoul right now. I just don't see it. They don't seem comfortable on their heroes. They don't seem comfortable playing together. Like I said, they seem like a one comp trick team at this point. So could they turn it around? Absolutely. They certainly have the talent to do so, but it is time to temper expectations on them. This is a team with legitimate flaws. So if I'm the coaches, you gotta start building that synergy, between the back line, the DPS. Fitz for me just hasn't been super impressive this season. I kind of feel bad for Prophet. I feel like he hasn't, ever since he's been in the league, he's had very inconsistent other DPS players, Birdring, very high highs, but very low lows. He had Guard last season, who was pretty underwhelming. Yeah, so that's going to be something I would look at as well. I would almost think about picking up another DPS if I'm the Dynasty, to kind of get some more heroes in, maybe get a little bit of fresh blood in there as well. But yeah, they're legitimate problems for Seoul, for sure. Philly and Paris had another super entertaining match. Paris just not quite able to complete the reverse sweep. We saw a little bit of the different options that you can have with Echo. We saw Echo being run with the Sigma and the Orisa. We also saw Echo being run with the Dive, the Winston, and the Diva. And it seemed like for me, most of the time, the Orisa Sigma is a little better. But there are certain maps and points on maps where Winston and Diva can be very, very good, as Paris showed us. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see how much that plays into it, and if we do see a lot of Echo. I'm not convinced we're going to see a lot of Echo because she's so easy to hit with McCree and Widow being back, particularly the McCree. You know how easy it is to 3-tap Echo on McCree for Overwatch League players? I mean, I'm a console diamond player, and I've been clapping Echoes with McCree and Soldier. And I'm a plat on PC, and I've been clapping Echoes with DPS. So, can Mercy make it so that she's viable? Maybe, but in my opinion, she's easier to hit than Pharah, and she can't consistently be as high as Pharah. So unless people start playing like a behind the shields ground Echo, I just don't really see her being as played and as good as she was this week. You know, when some of the when we have like 2 hit scans out of the pool, then sure. But I think that she's very, very easy to shut down. I'm sure you've all seen the videos of her hitbox. It's pretty massive. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Echo does get playtime, and if she does, which hero she was paired with. You know, we saw some Sombra. We saw a little bit of like Soldier, Ashe. So I'm very curious to see what the teams pull out this week with, like I said, some of the big hit scan heroes returning. Gladiators in Toronto had a pretty entertaining match. You know, Toronto looked really solid on first point, but then the Gladiators kind of just rolled it forward. Both of the LA teams won this week. Valiant also had a really nice reverse sweep against Atlanta. That's a nice quality win for them. I mean, Shax had an incredible performance on the Tracer. Man, he was playing very, very well. So if you guys did miss this week of action, New York and Shanghai I didn't even mention, but that was probably the best match of the entire season. Shanghai completing the reverse sweep, but super entertaining match there. And then, like I said, Philly Paris was great. Valiant Reign was great. Excelsior versus Hunters was an extremely fun game. I felt like Chengdu played really well for the most part in that series. And then Gladiators Defiant was also a good one. So we had a lot of good matches this week. Like I said, we need to. It's the teams I'm keeping my eye on the most are these mid-tier teams now. Hangzhou, Guangzhou, can they start consistently winning matches, or are they going to keep sticking right around 500? Can the Gladiators go on a win streak and prove they're a top-tier team? You know, can Atlanta stop being so freaking inconsistent? Can Dallas beat like a legitimate top-tier team? Same thing with Florida. You know, they've been winning a couple matches in a row. They're getting confident. Can they beat some of the big boys? So we're going to see moving forward. Got some great matches, like I said. If we look at the next week's schedule very quickly, Vancouver is now playing in the NA games. London is going to be playing in the Asian region games. So got a lot of good ones. I'll save it for the predictions video, but can Seoul redeem themselves against the Dragons? You know, how does Chengdu match up against a London team that hasn't played? Got a rematch of Guangzhou, New York. You know, Gladiators Paris is extremely interesting. So yeah, I am excited for this week of matches. Dallas, Philly, that could be interesting as well. But like I said, let me know what you guys think. Big takeaways from week number 13. Like I said, I thought it was a super fun week of matches. Seeing Echo was great. She is one of the best heroes they've released in the game, in my opinion. Even though she does kind of break the game a little bit and make it very, very hard for casters and players, I'm sure, in comms. But super enjoyable to watch. Hope you guys had a great weekend. As always, thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you in the next one for the Week 14 prediction.